the worst year I've ever had deer hunting.
This year in Minnesota, deer harvests were down across the state, especially in the northeast region, the woods so many of us hunt in.
This last season, we had about 25,000 deer killed by hunters, and that's 21% down from the previous year and 37% below the 5-year average.
The lower success rate means some frustrated hunters are giving up.
We hear a lot of reports of deer camps that have been around for generations that just don't exist anymore because people are unfortunately throwing in the towel on this great tradition that we have in the state.
And people are blaming the DNR.
If this was an NFL football team and we kept having losing seasons like this, people would have been fired.
In September, the Sturgeon River Chapter of the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association put up a billboard blaming the decline in deer on the apex predator, stating wolves devour over 54,000 fawns a year. But that claim has been disputed by multiple sources, including the Voyageurs Wolf Project.
The number of 54,000, it's not very clear where that number came from. And one of our biggest critiques on just sort of a scientific level of that number is that there's really just not enough information to arrive at any estimate for the state of Minnesota.
That message was not approved by Minnesota Deer Hunters Association at the state level. While we entirely support the intent behind that billboard, which is that we need wolf management, we need management of all species for the benefit of all species, right? Where it gets a little blurry is that number of 54,000.
The billboard has since been taken down, but the public debate continues.
You guys have been seeing it, right? You guys have been sending me pictures from cell cams with a wolf running, a deer first frame, and 2 minutes later, here comes a wolf. The deer has zero chance of outrunning.
Federal law currently prohibits wolves from being hunted, but that has not always been the case. There have been efforts to remove wolves from being listed as a threatened species on the Federal Endangered Species Act.
They're working on proposed rule that, will assess the status and make a determination on the listing in February of 2024.
The DNR has a plan for what is next. If wolves were to be delisted again, the state wolf plan would be enacted.
We've supported delisting and think that wolves have recovered and should be managed under, state laws.
The Minnesota Deer Hunters Association agrees with this stance.
For us, our ideal scenario is to delist the wolf, return management to the state.
It's common sense. There's too many wolves. Let's have a season. Let's manage it. Let's keep it manageable.
The decision on whether or not to have a wolf hunt will not be made until the species is delisted.
And if you look back at 2012, 13, and 14, when we did have a wolf hunt in the state, the DNR managed it. It was extremely successful.
We based that season on looking at where wolves are hunted or trapped in other parts of North America and used some of the information based on that. Is it sustainable? Are there opportunities to take wolves and do it in a way that's responsible and not impact the long-term survival of wolves in Minnesota?
Both the DNR and Voyageurs Wolf Project believe that there has not been a significant population increase, as hunters claim.
There's wolf research going back till the 1970s and 80s, and basically all the research that's occurred, including our own, suggests that the area has sustained sort of a dense, stable wolf population for several decades. And stable doesn't mean that there's not changes through time, but it means that there's not sort of an increasing or decreasing trend over time. It sort of remained kind of flat.
Wolves do not occur across the state. An estimated 2,700 wolves occupy around 31 counties in northern Minnesota.
The largest or highest number we ever estimated was about 3,020, and that was in the early 2000s, about the same time that we had a higher deer population and higher hunter success.
And no animal can continue to persist at the same level while their food source is just plummeting. That just doesn't happen. So wolves are very resourceful. They eat deer, that's their main prey, but they also eat other food sources. And in the summer in particular, their diets are very varied just because there's a lot of different food sources. Then in the wintertime, their diets get a bit narrower because they're really going after deer at that time.
According to the DNR, wintertime may be the most to blame for the decline in deer population over wolves or other predators.
Certainly there's, been evidence that deep snow affects the survival of deer. It reduces, the nutritional condition that they're in because it's harder to get food, harder to find or get access to food in winter months. So as snow depths increase, we see higher rates of predation on deer from wolves. And, they're taking advantage of the vulnerability that, deer are in under those conditions.
The past couple of winters saw extreme snowfall, even setting a record last year. The previous snowfall record was set in 1995 to 96, and what happened with the deer population then could be a trend we see again.
In the late 1990s, we had severe winters. We had a deer population that was kind of on the upswing, but following those severe winters, saw a pretty drastic decline in deer numbers and hunter harvest.
We can't control the weather, but the DNR says mild winters have been beneficial for the deer population.
And that was the case back in the early 2000s. Deer populations rebounded relatively quickly.